A first principles summary of this conglomerate of books, a body of work largely authored by Loretta Bruning, excluding status games by Alex Lickerman, though its concepts align, requires distilling their combined narrative down to its irreducible foundational truths. This synthesis moves beyond individual book titles to construct a single, cohesive meta-narrative focused on mammalian neurochemistry, social behavior, and the conscious management of primal impulses to achieve sustainable well-being. The core philosophy shared across these texts is an integration of neuroscience, evolutionary biology, and psychology to explain the human experience of happiness, anxiety, and social conflict. It argues that much of our emotional and political turmoil stems from ancient hardwired mammalian circuitry that prioritizes survival and social status, often at the expense of modern, long-term contentment. Here is the foundational synthesis, structured around the core principles extracted from the entire collection. The foundational truth, the mammalian brain, and the primal imperative. The entire edifice of this work rests on a single, powerful premise. The human brain is fundamentally a survival machine driven by a system of neurochemical rewards and threats inherited from our mammalian ancestors. Our emotions are not mystical forces. They are signals designed to ensure the propagation of our genes. A. The chemical engine of motivation. The happy chemicals. The most irreducible element is the happy chemical quartet: dopamine, endorphin, oxytocin, and serotonin. These are the engine of all motivation, and their function is entirely practical and survival-oriented. Dopamine, the get-it chemical. Dopamine is the go signal. Its purpose is not pleasure, but motivation, the feeling of excited anticipation that drives a mammal to pursue a survival reward: food, water, mate, shelter. It is released when a goal is within reach and predicts a payoff. Primal function, to direct energy toward finding necessary resources. Modern implication, it fuels addiction, ambition, and the thrill of the chase. In the context of entrepreneurship or goal setting, it's the excitement that pulls you forward. When dopamine trails dry up, the goal is achieved or the pursuit is blocked, the resulting feeling is often frustration or disappointment. Endorphin, the ignore pain chemical. Endorphin is the grit signal. Its purpose is to mask physical pain during injury or strenuous effort, allowing the mammal to escape a predator or persevere until safety is reached. It provides a brief, euphoric runner's high. Primal function, to enable survival in the face of injury. Modern implication, it's triggered by intense exercise, laughter, or crying. Its effect is temporary, and its primary function is protection, not permanent bliss. The work suggests being mindful of seeking constant highs as they mask underlying issues. Oxytocin, the we're safe chemical. Oxytocin is the trust signal. Its core function is to reward safe social bonds, the feeling of comfort and belonging within the in-group. It lowers defensive walls, encouraging cooperation crucial for mammalian group survival and child rearing. Primal function, to foster necessary social alliances and bonding. Modern implication, it fuels loyalty, love, and the desire for social inclusion. It is easily manipulated by social games, us versus them, because the brain is wired to feel safe within the tribe and threatened by the outside. It is the core chemical in navigating status games. Serotonin, the power chemical. Serotonin is the respect signal. It is released when a mammal perceives itself to be in a position of advantage, high status, or safety relative to its environment or peers. It generates the pleasant feeling of pride or significance. Primal function, to inhibit aggressive impulses from subordinates and reinforce the social hierarchy, thereby reducing energy-wasting internal conflict. Modern implication, it drives the pursuit of respect, influence, and recognition. Much of modern unhappiness is the constant painful comparison that triggers an absence of serotonin. B. The neurochemical loops and habit formation. A second foundational principle is the mechanism of neural pathways. Every time a happy chemical is triggered, it paves a specific neural pathway. The principle of neural repetition. The brain prioritizes energy efficiency. Therefore, it favors the pathways that have been successfully used before. Neurons that fire together, wire together. The origin of habits. Happiness or stress is not random. It's a chemical loop based on past experience. When you face a challenge, your brain defaults to the most established pathway, or habit, that has delivered a happy chemical in the past, even if that habit is destructive, e.g., complaining, criticizing, or anxiety. The path to change. Retraining the brain is not about willpower. It is about deliberately paving new, alternative, positive neural pathways through repeated, conscious, small steps. This concept underpins the practical advice in books like Habits of a Happy Brain and 14 Days to Sustainable Happiness. The core conflict: nature versus the modern world. The central tension explored across this body of work is the mismatch between the brain's ancient operating system and the complexity of modern life. This mismatch is the source of anxiety, cynicism, and social unrest. The primal root of anxiety and negativity. The nervous system of a mammal is fundamentally geared toward threat detection. This mechanism, essential for avoiding danger in the wild, creates a pervasive inclination toward negativity in the modern world. The why you're unhappy. Principle: the brain is not designed for constant happiness. It's designed for survival. A continuous flow of happy chemicals would make a mammal lazy and vulnerable. Happy chemical spikes are rewards for action, not a steady state. When the happy chemical flow ceases, the brain reverts to a mild state of tension or stress, signaling that it needs to do something to secure survival. The inner mammal. The brain constantly assesses its social and physical environment for threats. To status, serotonin, and safety belonging, oxytocin. When a threat is perceived, a challenge to authority, a change in routine, or social exclusion, the brain releases cortisol, the stress hormone. Anxiety, as a habit. Anxiety is often a learned pathway. The brain, when seeking safety, oxytocin, or status, serotonin, often defaults to worry or complaining because, in the past, this pattern either gathered social support, oxytocin reward, or successfully avoided a perceived threat, dopamine reward for successful avoidance. The work in Tame Your Anxiety and Anxiety, What Turns It On. What Turns It Off emphasizes the need to consciously choose a new response despite the initial fear signal. The social game. Status and cynicism, the texts rigorously deconstruct human, social interaction, arguing that most political and social conflict is an expression of the mammalian quest for status, serotonin, and group protection, oxytocin, status games, and social power. The need for serotonin makes us acutely sensitive to rank. Mammal and status games illuminate that humans constantly seek subtle signals of social advantage. We don't just want wealth, we want more wealth than our neighbor. We don't just want success, we want respect and recognition for that success. Feeling of being right in an argument is a serotonin spike, which is why arguments are so addictive. The cynical trap. The constant comparison required by the status game leads to envy and resentment. To cope with the pain of perceived low status, low serotonin, the brain often adopts cynicism or negativity, beyond cynical. The defense mechanism. By devaluing the status markers of others. That rich person is corrupt. That successful person is a sellout. The brain releases serotonin through the feeling of moral superiority or intellectual advantage. This is a cheap, temporary serotonin hit that avoids the harder work of building genuine status through constructive effort. Political correctness and revolt. The political dimension is framed as a macro-level status game. The texts suggest that movements including political correctness and revolt are often driven by groups seeking to overturn the existing serotonin hierarchy, or enforce oxytocin-driven boundaries. Revolt is the impulse to overthrow the dominant order to create a new one, where one's own group enjoys the security and serotonin that the previous group possessed. It is an expression of natural mammalian impulses, not purely rational ideology. The first principles of sustainable happiness and agency. If happiness is simply a chemical surge designed for temporary motivation, then sustainable happiness requires conscious management of our mammalian brain. The final unifying principle is agency, the capacity to deliberately rewire our emotional responses. A. The principle of conscious neuroredirection. The goal is not to eliminate primal impulses, which is impossible, but to redirect the chemical flow toward constructive long-term goals. Acknowledge the mammal. The first step is to accept that primal impulses, jealousy, anger, fear, need for validation, are not moral failures. They are simply the operation of ancient circuitry. You cannot blame a dog for chasing a squirrel. By understanding the biology versus politics of emotion, you gain distance from the impulse. Name the chemical. When experiencing an intense emotion, the act of identifying the underlying chemical drive, e.g., that fear is just cortisol preparing me for flight, it's not reality, interrupts the automatic response loop. Build alternative rewards. The only way to stop relying on destructive habits, complaining, anxiety, excessive political conflict, is to consciously and repeatedly substitute them with new positive habits that trigger the happy chemicals, dopamine redirection. Instead of chasing unrealistic goals, break them down into small achievable steps to get a consistent, realistic dopamine trickle. Oxytocin. Redirection. Instead of relying on passive belonging, the in-group of the news, invest in active, personal, one-on-one trust and cooperation. Serotonin redirection. Focus on self-mastery and personal competence, achievements that give you a sense of personal significance, rather than relying on external comparison. B. The integrity principle. The books implicitly and explicitly conclude that true, lasting contentment comes from aligning the search for happy chemicals with integrity and constructive action. This is where the concept of Griesledau, how to thrive without bribes, fits into the neurochemical framework. Long-term serotonin versus short-term greasing. Short-term gains, whether physical bribes or intellectual shortcuts like cynicism, provide immediate but fragile serotonin, the status of a quick win. Sustainable status. Long-term success, built on competence, honesty, and effort, creates a more durable and reliable source of serotonin. This type of status is earned through demonstrated worth, which is harder for others to challenge, leading to less cortisol and more sustainable well-being. The unifying narrative. The ultimate principle of this collective work is that we have the capacity to choose the survival pathways we reinforce. We can choose to be slaves to our ancient mammalian wiring, or we can use our modern prefrontal cortex, the human part of the brain, to observe, understand, and deliberately build a new set of happy habits that align our primal drives with our highest, most constructive human values. Happiness is not a right or a random blessing. It is a chemical outcome of conscious, repeated choice.